The NFL is a strange league, because as much as we have the generational stars like Tom Brady, Jerry Rice, and LaDainian Tomlinson, it seems like there is a disproportionate amount of players that end up crashing out of the league just as quickly as their star is born. Similar to the one-hit wonder phenomenon that we've seen in pop music, these players, for whatever reason, whether it be a coaching or system change, or maybe even plain old luck, end up having one standout season, and the next thing we know, they're working at the local car dealership. So today, we're going to take a look back at the biggest one-year wonder in each NFL team's history. Arizona Cardinals, Beanie Wells, 2011. In addition to having one of the coolest names in recent NFL history, Beanie Wells also carries the honor of being the best one-season wonder in Cardinals history. After being drafted in 2009 and starting just 2 games in 2 seasons, he became the full-time starter in 2011, and he rushed for 1,047 yards and 10 touchdowns. Unfortunately, his stardom was short-lived, as the following season he'd rush for just 234 yards and he'd be out of the league at its conclusion. Atlanta Falcons, Chris Chandler, 1998. Chris Chandler was basically Ryan Fitzpatrick before Ryan Fitzpatrick. He, along with Fitzpatrick, have the unique distinction of starting games for 8 different teams. After being bounced from Indy, who drafted him in '88, and a couple of uneventful stops in Tampa Bay, Phoenix, Los Angeles, and Houston, he found his way to Atlanta, where he had himself a bit of a career renaissance. In 1998, he started 14 games and won 13 of them while throwing for 3,154 yards and 25 touchdowns, dwarfing the numbers he put up during the rest of his career. Baltimore Ravens, Justin Forsett, 2014. Justin Forsett, a journeyman halfback, found himself carrying the load for the Ravens in 2014. And boy did he put in work. After starting a total of 7 games during his first 4 seasons in the league, he started 14 games in 2014 and rushed for 1,266 yards and 8 touchdowns, while tacking on nearly 270 receiving yards. But in classic Ravens fashion, the next season he received about 60% of the workload he had in 2014, and obviously his production went down. Forsett saw limited action in 2016 as well, and retired with 2014 being his only Pro Bowl season. Buffalo Bills, Terry Miller, 1978. Terry Miller is another example for Bills fans about how it's best to never get your hopes up. Really, about anything. Miller was a highly touted prospect out of Oklahoma State, where he finished second in the 1977 Heisman voting, and he got off to a hot start in the NFL, rushing for 1,060 yards in his rookie season. He saw his carries split in half in 1979 with the arrival of Joe Cribbs. Those carries all but disappeared in 1980, and he was out of the league by 1982. Carolina Panthers, Steve Beuerlein, 1999. After bouncing around the league, struggling to find a home and produce consistently, Steve Beuerlein ended up in Carolina, where after 3 seasons of seeing limited action, he became the starter by default in 1999.
I guess you're the winner by default.
Default! Woohoo! The 2 sweetest words in the English language. Default! Default! Default!
Beuerlein, who had only started double-digit games in a season twice in his career, shocked the league when he threw for nearly 4,500 yards and 36 touchdowns, earning his first and only Pro Bowl selection in his 13th season. Chicago Bears, Marcus Robinson, 1999. Marcus Robinson is one of those unfortunate cases. In 1999, he made 84 catches for 1,400 yards and 9 touchdowns after missing the majority of his rookie season with a thumb injury. He was never able to fully shake the injury bug though, and it would hamper him throughout the rest of his career. The Cincinnati Bengals, ICKEY Woods, 1988. ICKEY Woods, like Robinson, was brutalized by injuries. He was beloved as a rookie for his famous ICKEY shuffle, and he'd use it often. During that 1988 season, he scored 15 times and rushed for 1,066 yards, averaging 5.3 yards per carry. But because of his fragility, that was far and away his best year, as he'd eclipse 100 yards rushing just once in the final 3 years of his career. Cleveland Browns, Peyton Hillis, 2010. Peyton Hillis is everyone's favorite one-hit wonder. Perhaps it was the Madden cover, or maybe it was because it happened to the Browns. I don't know. Either way, Hillis went from rushing for 54 yards in 2009 to 1,177 in 2010, back down to 587, then 309 in the preceding 2 seasons. Certainly not the progression anyone was expecting. Dallas Cowboys, Laurent Robinson, 2011. After a meager start to his NFL career, where he never caught more than 37 passes in a season, 2011 was a breakout season for Laurent Robinson, who hauled in 11 touchdowns and 858 receiving yards despite starting just 4 games for the Cowboys. He then parlayed that into a 5-year, $32 million deal with Jacksonville, with whom he caught a total of 0 touchdowns and 24 passes. Yikes! Denver Broncos, OLANDIS carry, 1999. When Terrell Davis went down in the 1999 season, Bronco fans were mortified, worrying what the team's offense would look like without its star running back. Fortunately, OLANDIS Gary came out of nowhere to rush for 1,159 yards on 276 attempts, while scoring 7 touchdowns. Pretty solid for a little-known 4th-round pick. This was easily Gary's best season of his career, though, as he'd scored just 4 touchdowns throughout the rest of his time in the NFL. Detroit Lions, Joseph Fauria, 2013. When a tight end catches 7 touchdowns in a season, it's a big deal. When a rookie tight end does so, it usually means we have a future Hall of Famer on our hands. Or not. Fauria's early success was short-lived, as he mangled his ankle playing volleyball and was eventually cut just a season later. Green Bay Packers, Don Majkowski, 1989. Don the Magic Man Majkowski was a rather puzzling career arc, to put it lightly. After struggling his first 2 seasons, he earned Pro Bowl honors in 1989, throwing for 4,318 yards and 27 touchdowns, and leading the Packers to a 10-6 record. This earned him a new $1.5 million contract, but in the 10th game of the season, he tore his rotator cuff, and the effect of the injury seemed to linger into the following season. Then in 1992, he was replaced by some kid named Brett Favre, who would start every game the Packers played for the next 15 years. Majkowski bounced around for the next couple of seasons before retiring in 1996. Houston Texans, Steve Slayton, 2008. After being taken in the 3rd round of the 2008 NFL Draft, Slayton wasted little time putting that 4.4 speed to work, as he rushed for 1,282 yards and 9 touchdowns as a rookie. Expectations were sky high for Slayton heading into his 2nd season in the NFL, but he caught a case of the fumbles and lost favor with the coaching staff. He rushed for just 431, 93, and 84 yards in each of the next 3 seasons before finding himself out of the league. Indianapolis Colts, Jonathan Newsome, 2014. Jonathan Newsome was a beast during his rookie season in Indianapolis. Despite only starting 1 game the entire season, he made the most of his opportunities. Of his 28 total tackles for the 2014 season, 6.5 of them were sacks, which is an insane percentage when you think about it. Tack on 3 fumbles he forced, and he looks poised to be a big-time playmaker for the Colts. But after a disappointing sophomore campaign and an off-season marijuana arrest, it was off to Canada and the CFL for Newsome. Jacksonville Jaguars, Blake Bortles, 2015. After a difficult rookie season, Blake Bortles broke out in a big way as a sophomore, throwing for 4,428 yards and 35 touchdowns. It was the type of campaign that had fantasy football owners everywhere drooling over the Jaguars quarterback. But unfortunately, it didn't last long. Bortles struggled over his next 3 seasons, failing to surpass 4,000 yards or 23 touchdowns in each of those campaigns. He was finally benched during the 2018 season and released the ensuing offseason, settling for a backup role with the Los Angeles Rams. Kansas City Chiefs, Spencer Ware, 2016. Spencer Ware was a fantasy football darling in 2016, filling in for the oft-injured Jamal Charles. Ware was a true dual threat out of the backfield, rushing for nearly 1,000 yards and notching 447 receiving yards in just 14 games. In 2017, he was finally projected to be the full-time starter, but he suffered a brutal knee injury in the 3rd preseason game. He missed the entire 2017 season and was relegated to platoon usage by 2018. While still productive, he never really showed the same level of explosiveness and consistency that he had in 2016. Las Vegas Raiders, Lamont Jordan, 2005. Lamont Jordan spent 4 years in New York, toiling away with part-time usage, but was still productive in his limited action. Finally, in 2005, he got his chance to be a starter in Oakland, and Jordan went off with his 14 starts, rushing for 1,025 yards and 9 touchdowns. The Raiders were thrilled. This was exactly what they had seen in spurts from Jordan when he was a Jet, but the success was short-lived. Over the next 4 years, he would start just 15 games, and he only averaged more than 4 yards per carry one more time during the final 4 seasons of his career. Los Angeles Chargers, Gary Anderson, 1988. After limited usage in his first 2 seasons, Gary Anderson rushed for 1,119 yards in 1988. But perhaps the most impressive part was that as his usage rate went way up, so too did his productivity. He went from averaging 3.3 yards per carry on just 80 carries in 1987 to a whopping 5 yards per carry on 225 carries during his breakout 1988 campaign.
Los Angeles Rams, Zach Stacy, 2013.
Zach Stacy was a monster during his rookie season with the St. Louis Rams. After being a 5th-round pick, he was thrust into more consistent playing time when Isaiah Peed received a suspension for violating the league's substance abuse policy. Despite starting just 12 games, Stacy came within striking distance of a 1,000-yard season and added 7 touchdowns. But in 2014, after the Rams drafted Trey Mason, Stacy never really had a chance at carrying a full workload ever again.
Miami Dolphins, Lamar Smith, 2000.
Lamar Smith had never rushed for more than 700 yards entering the 2000 season, but during that season, he took his game to a whole new level. Smith rushed for 1,139 yards and scored an insane 14 touchdowns, which was more than he had in his entire career to date. Oh, and it was more than he'd have in the rest of his career too.
Minnesota Vikings, Brian Russell, 2003.
Brian Russell's career in the NFL was very much a success. It lasted 9 seasons, and he was a full-time starter for 6 of them. But much of that was due to the equity he earned with his epic 2003 season in Minnesota. In 2003, he earned a reputation for being a ball hawk, as he snatched 9 interceptions, which was comfortably the best total of his career. In fact, in his other 7 NFL seasons combined, he had just 7 interceptions total.
New England Patriots, Robert Edwards, 1998.
Robert Edwards has one of the most bizarre careers ever. He played just 2 seasons in the NFL, which just so happened to take place 4 years apart. Sadly, it was the result of a brutal injury during a flag football game at the Pro Bowl following the 98 season. But even so, reading his stat line just looked odd. And let's just say his second stint in the NFL with the Dolphins in 2002 was not nearly as impressive as his first go-around with New England in 1998. During that 98 season, he was a beast, rushing for 1,115 yards as a rookie and punching in 9 touchdowns while adding 3 more through the air.
New Orleans Saints, Stephon Anthony, 2015.
Stephon Anthony is certainly one of the stranger entries on this list. After starting all 16 games as a rookie and making 112 tackles for the Saints, he saw his usage drop nearly 80%, and he hasn't logged more than 16 tackles in the season since.
New York Giants, Steve Smith, 2009.
Steve Smith, no, not the Carolina Panthers Steve Smith, had himself a year in 2009. After some steady progression in 2007 and 2008, he exploded for 1,220 yards and 7 touchdowns in 2009, and seemed poised to be the next breakout star in New York. Unfortunately for Smith, it seems that the team had other plans. He was targeted 50% less in 2010 and was out of the league completely by the conclusion of the 2012 season.
New York Jets, Kevin Long, 1978.
After rushing for just 56 yards in 1977, Kevin Long emerged as a potential franchise back for the Jets in 1978. He rushed for nearly 1,000 yards, averaging 4.5 yards per carry, and scored 10 touchdowns. This was particularly impressive because he was traditionally used as a fullback. But over the next few seasons, his role shifted, and he'd never rush for over 500 yards again.
Philadelphia Eagles, Nick Foles, 2013.
Everyone knows Nick Foles as the legendary backup who unseated Tom Brady in their epic Super Bowl duel. But before that, he was just another one-hit wonder. During his second season in the NFL, Foles was thrust into the starting lineup, and boy, did he deliver. He earned Pro Bowl honors despite starting just 10 games, and threw for 27 touchdowns compared to just 2 interceptions. Although Philly gave him a shot as the full-time starter for the next couple seasons, he could never really reclaim the same magic he did during that crazy 2013 season, with the obvious exception of that impressive playoff run from the 2017 season.
Pittsburgh Steelers, Tommy Maddox, 2002.
Tommy Maddox had one of the most preposterous NFL journeys really of all time. After being taken in the first round of the 92 NFL draft, he quickly flamed out, to the point that he pseudo-retired to sell insurance. He eventually found his way back into the league thanks to a successful stint in the Arena Football League. Then, as a backup for the Pittsburgh Steelers, he overtook Cordell Stewart and led the team to a 10-5-1 record, earning NFL Comeback Player of the Year. His success, however, was short-lived. as he floundered the following season and was eventually replaced by Big Ben Roethlisberger.
San Francisco 49ers, Chris Borland, 2014.
Chris Borland is certainly an outlier on this list, as he voluntarily retired after just one season in the NFL, setting the media ablaze as he cited safety concerns as his reason for retiring. While it was his own choice, it's hard not to mention him as a one-hit wonder, especially considering how much promise he showed his rookie season, snatching 2 interceptions and making a total of 108 tackles.
Seattle Seahawks, Thomas Rawls, 2015.
Anyone who plays fantasy football knows the name Thomas Rawls. Rawls was an absolute stud in 2015, filling in for an injured Marshawn Lynch. Despite starting just 7 games, he ran for a total of 830 yards at an average of 5.6 yards a pop. He'd have a couple of flashes in the coming years, including a big-time playoff performance in 2016, but he never really lived up to the hype that surrounded him during his breakout season.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Michael Clayton, 2004.
Michael Clayton seems to be on everyone's short list for biggest one-hit wonder, and for good reason. After being taken 15th overall in the 2004 NFL Draft, Clayton burst onto the scene and put up a dominant rookie campaign, leading all NFL rookies with 80 receptions and 1,193 yards, while also hauling in 7 touchdowns. Sadly, all of Clayton's NFL promise started and stopped his rookie season, as he never eclipsed 500 yards again in his career, and he only collected 3 more total touchdown catches.
Tennessee Titans, Drew Bennett, 2004.
Drew Bennett is a part of that unique club of quarterbacks turned wide receiver who actually panned out and made it to the next level. That's not to say it was always easy for Bennett, who went undrafted, but Bennett was an outlier and he made it, getting to start with the Tennessee Titans in 2001, where he proved enough to maintain a spot on the active roster. And that's what he was seen as for most of his career. A pro's a pro, but limited in what he could bring to the table production-wise. That was until 2004, when he exploded for 80 receptions, 1,247 yards, and 11 touchdowns, including a stretch where he scored 8 touchdowns in just 3 games. He put up a couple of decent seasons after that, but never really achieved that level of production ever again.
Washington Redskins, Robert Griffin III, 2012.
It is hard to find a more disappointing one-year wonder than Robert Griffin III. RG3 burst onto the scene in 2012 after being part of one of the most memorable and highly anticipated QB draft classes in recent history, when he and Andrew Luck were seen as surefire can't-miss prospects. During that 2012 season, he not only won NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year honors, but was also named to a Pro Bowl. After years of Andrew Luck being one of the most highly touted prospects the NFL had ever seen, Griffin almost effortlessly passed him, at least for 1 year. Sadly, the knee injury he suffered late in that season continuously hampered him, essentially stopping the RG3 train before it could even leave the station. After that epic rookie season where he threw for 3,200 yards and ran for 815 more, it seemed like he never had that same explosiveness. And, well, his production showed it. Who do you think was the biggest one-hit wonder in NFL history? Join us in the comments section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps us out a ton, and hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.